with FC Dallas. So you listeners know, we're going to preview the players who have come in and out this offseason, review the designated players, figure out which kind of young players might break out, as well as look at projected starting lineups, projected MVP, most important players on the team, and then the ceiling and the floor of each team. So let's take a look at the players in for FC Dallas. Is that a typo I see, Mike? Is that Fala Picoult or Fafa Picoult?
That's Fafa Pico.
Fafa Picoult,
Yeah, so,
the one that we all
there,
know, yes. Coming in from the Union to join FC Dallas, as well as Thiago Santos, a midfielder from Palmeiras, and Eddie Manjoba, a homegrown defender. All are joining FC Dallas, and from the looks of it, all look to be making an immediate impact. The players out: Eric Alexander, Christian Coleman, Edwin Giassi, Moises Hernandez, and Dom Baji. They're either out of contracts or options were declined, but in the case of Dom Baji, he was traded to Nashville to hopefully have a resurgent career with that expansion side. Just based on that, Mike, what do you think?
Kind of a quiet offseason for Dallas, not a lot of movement. I like some of their moves in. The Fafa Pico, I think he's a great player. He's a good value type player for MLS. He's going to put up some production, especially if he gets the minutes, which I fully expect he will. Thiago Santos, really don't know much about him. From Palmeiras in Brazil, that's a good club in Brazil, so obviously the guy has some talent. He's a little bit older. I believe he's in his 30s, but he should be a good standard piece for FC Dallas. That's something about Dallas. They don't have a bunch of big names. It's not, the place to find the big money, big time signings. That's not how they operate. So this guy seems kind of like the same type of mold that fits FC Dallas so well. And then Eddie Munjoma, really don't know anything about this kid. He's homegrown, and with that academy that FC Dallas has, there's going to be some good quality in that guy if he's getting signed to the first team, because that academy always puts out good talent.
Just to add a little bit more on Thiago Santos, he's been with Palmeiras for the last 4 years, and he has started almost every game for them in that time frame. So even though he's 30, he is a reliable player. Of course, now that they say that, he's probably going to go down with an injury in training camp or something like that. But he appears to be a very reliable player, a solid defender, and someone who's going to be able to get a lot of quality time for FC Dallas.
Nice. Some of the players out. We got Eric Alexander, Christian Coleman, who just didn't work out. He was a decent signing that they had brought in just, I think, last year. Edwin Giassi, Moises Hernandez, and Dominic Badji, who was traded to Nashville. The biggest one that I noticed on this one is Badji being traded to Nashville. He was probably the only guy on this list that really contributed anything last year, outside of maybe Christian Coleman a little bit. But yeah, Dom Badji is a good striker, so they'll miss him. But they've got some good pieces up front to make up for it.
Right. It's not a surprise that they signed Fafa Picoult after losing Dom Badji. So try to make up for the offense. As far as their designated players, they've got Brian Acosta, Pablo Araguanis, and Santiago Mosquera. Araguanis is loaned out, so they've got two DPs in their midfield, hoping to drive that machine that is FC Dallas on the field. Brian Acosta, we know he's kind of one of those MLS household names, not a superstar, but yet a very reliable and steady player, someone who can kind of dictate the way Dallas goes. If they're having a good game, if they're having a good stretch, it's probably because Brian Acosta is playing well and really linking up the defense with the striking and the attack. As far as Mosquera, not too familiar with him and his style of play. But again, if Dallas is going to exceed expectations, just like any MLS team, you need your designated players to be the best players on the field for you.
Absolutely. Surprising with Aragonese getting loaned out to Universidad de Chile. I think the way the rules go, they can pick up a DP on loan because they can have the three DPs. If one is loaned out, they're okay because he's not technically on the roster. So be interesting to see if they pick somebody up just for the short term. I I don't know if they're going to or not. My guess is they probably won't, just because they're Dallas and that's kind of how they operate. But interesting note there. Now let's talk a little bit about the breakout youngsters here, because that's a good spot for FC Dallas. They've got a lot of young guys who can make a big difference. Starting off, probably the most common on everybody's list is going to be Paxton Pomykal. What do you think about Paxton Pomykal, Nick?
I mean, it's hard to see him as a breakout youngster because we got to see how well he could play. And I know you say the same thing about Reggie Cannon, the next guy on your list there. We've gotten to see both of these guys play and play at a very high level, both for Dallas and for the U.S. men's national team when they got their couple call-ups this last year under Berhalter. So I don't know if you want to call them breakout youngsters, but at the same time, they are still youngsters. They are still developing, and they're only getting better. There were rumors that Pomykal had offers from Europe. Again, it's the MLS. It's international soccer. There's rumors about everything, so I don't know how much credit there was to that. But I'm looking for Pomykal to take those next steps to be an everyday starter and to contribute to FC Dallas's offense on a much larger scale than he did this last season. And then what do you think about Cannon and Ricardo Pepi, the other player you've listed as a youngster that could break out?
Yeah, so as far as really breaking out, I think Ricardo Pepi is the guy to talk about for Dallas. This guy lit up USL League One last year. I watched a lot of games with TFC2, so I'm pretty familiar with League One, USL League One. This guy was, you could not stop this guy, or North Texas SC. For that matter, in USL League One. I think they won the title. These guys were, fantastic. Ricardo Pepi was scoring tons of goals, and he's kind of the next big thing to come out of their youth academy. So that one, I definitely expect him to have a breakout season. And Reggie Cannon, it's kind of tough with Paxton Pomykal and Reggie Cannon. They are so young that you want to put them in this list. But breakout, they kind of already have broken out. I think Reggie Cannon might have been the one that really overstayed his welcome as far as a breakout youngster because he's been around for a couple of years. But definitely expecting them to continue to get better and really settle in as stars in the league. I think Reggie Cannon and Paxton Pomykal really have to be starters every single game and really step up their game to be on that next level for Dallas to be a successful team.
So now that we've kind of broken down who's in, who's out, what the stars to look for? What's your projected 11?
Yeah, so projected 11 in this one, just as a side note for everybody, for all of these team previews, basically what I did was I went to the last game that the team played last year and used that formation. So whatever that formation was in the last game that they played, whether it be playoffs, whether it be regular season, I used that formation. So in the case of FC Dallas, it was a 4-3-3. Obviously, with some of the other teams, you're going to have different coaches, you're going to have different formations, but I'm not getting into that. I'm just using the same formation as was used at the end of the season. So for Dallas, it's a 4-3-3. My starting goalkeeper is Jesse Gonzalez. Just signed a contract extension in the offseason, 4-year extension. So really hefty extension there for him. As far as the defenders, I've got Brisson starting as a wingback, Rito Ziegler, the Swiss international, I believe, and then Matt Hedges and Cannon as well on defense. In the midfield, I've got Mosquera, Acosta, and Pomykal, as well as then for the three forwards, Barrios, Andrasic, the Cobra, and Pico. So that's the starting 11 there. Do you agree with that, Nick? Do you see there's any maybe any changes you'd make to that?
When I look at it on paper, it looks like a really potent offense. It looks like Dallas is going to be able to score goals, that they should be averaging, 2-3 goals a game here with this lineup. All three of their strikers can find the back of the net, and then if you get Acosta and Pomykal involved and Cannon making those long runs from the defensive third, Dallas on paper looks to have a pretty good offense. Is it going to translate? Is that going to leave their defense exposed? How are they going to play this year? Is it more a go-get-it year or is it more of a development year? All of that taken into account is going to determine whether or not they are that team that reaches their ceiling or that team that sticks closer to their floor. But I think, Mike, your projected 11 on paper, it's a solid selection.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're really have a good lineup there. So I'm expecting some decent things for FC Dallas. Maybe not MLS Cup contenders yet, but pretty close. So one of the next piece that I want to talk about is the most important player. So every team has that one guy going into the season that has to make a big difference. Has to be spot on the whole year in order for this team to be successful. I'm going to go with Jesse Gonzalez, the goalkeeper. Just as I mentioned before, just signed that 4-year big-time extension. They put their faith and belief in this guy. And he has, he's had his ups and downs throughout the years. He's shown flashes of greatness. He's shown sometimes to not be that great of a goalkeeper. So he's kind of gone up and down. He needs to be successful for this team to be successful. If he has a good season, this team will do extremely well. They have the offense. They've got the forwards, a great forward group. They've got a strong midfield. Their defense, they've got some great defenders as well. Matt Hedges is always a top defender. Ziegler's a good defender. Reggie Cannon, good on the outside. So I think it really comes down to Jesse Gonzalez as that most important player. And if he shines, so too will Dallas.
And just a little trivia about Jesse Gonzalez. He actually had the opportunity to play for both Mexico and the United States. And he played for Mexico's youth teams, but then declared for the U.S. senior team. So he's hoping to break into the USMNT at some point. So with that, Mike, what's your ceiling and floor prediction for FC Dallas?
Okay, so ceiling and floor. For the ceiling, I think if all goes well, you're looking at a higher playoff seed in the Western Conference. My best guess at this point is probably a 3rd seed in the West. So you're going to get that home playoff game. It could translate into 2 home playoff games at some point, hosting a conference final or whatnot. So that's kind of the best case scenario for Dallas with the roster that they have today. Obviously, that changes. They go out and sign a 3rd DP. They bring in some more good depth signings. That might change. But where we are today with the ceiling in Florida, that's the ceiling. As far as floor goes, I'm thinking missing the playoffs. If, they get some injuries, Jesse Gonzalez doesn't have a good season, Pomical doesn't get better, Acosta has a down season, I could see this team missing the playoffs and finishing probably just missing probably like 8th or 9th in the Western Conference.
Yeah, either that or Pomical or Cannon end up getting sold to some European club for big bucks.
True.
And, hey, you're not going to pass up a $10, $12 million deal for one of your players, especially if you're Dallas, who's just pumping out homegrowns and academy products. And if you're without one of your star starting 11s half the season, yeah, you might miss out on the playoffs then. And
exactly.
we're gonna get a first. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So look out for our actual predictions. We'll be doing, our straight up predictions the week going into the season. So probably the week of February 20th. That's when Nick and I will put our predictions down on paper and post it up to our website, www.sonsofapitchsoccer.com, and we'll make sure we track those picks throughout the season as we have done in the last 2 years. So these are kind of just giving you an idea of the ceiling and the floor, and look out for that actual pick from each Nick and I coming up the week before the season starts.
And then to wrap up FC Dallas, they begin their season February 29th at home against the Philadelphia Union. So an interconference game, is that what you'd call it? I can't think of what MLS would use. Cross conference?
East
Eastern
Conference
West
against the Western Conference. There you go.
So an interesting way to start the season, but a good test against a Philadelphia Union squad who's coming off one of their best seasons in club history. So good test for Dallas. Stay tuned to see how they do.
Yeah, Fafa Pico doesn't have to wait very long to test out against his former team. So with that,
That'll be
you
the
enjoyed
headline.
the preview for FC Dallas.